Definitely, possible, yeah. And.
We must let that beautiful St. Mark's resonance die away, I think, respectfully. That was music by Giovanni Gabrieli, and it was played by the New Holland Chamber Brass, conducted by Roland Peelman on today's music show. Roland, have a seat. Maybe I could begin by asking Natalie Shea to say something about the music we've just heard. What was that?
That was a piece by Giovanni Gabrieli, published in 1615. And it would have been performed in the context of a church service at one of the moments of high drama in the service, if you like, a wordless moment, perhaps the elevation of the host, some moment that was particularly profound, particularly inspiring, and music like that just would have gilded the silence amazingly.
Gilded being the operative word if we're talking about St. Mark's in Venice. For the benefit of people who are listening on the radio, on AM radio, in mono, what we actually just heard, those of us who were lucky enough to be present, was an antiphonal performance. Perhaps you could tell us what that means.
Your players are divided into two groups. Depending on the piece of music, there may be two equal groups with the same voicings in each part, or there may be a high registered group and a low registered group, like sopranos and basses if you were singers. In this case, they were, I think, even groups, and they would have been positioned separately from each other in St. Mark's, so one on one side and the other some distance removed on the other side.
And is that simply a matter of increasing the drama, or is there a sort of, I don't know, a priestly quality to this, call and response?
It has all kinds of dimensions to it. Certainly, it at a theological level, it resonates with Old Testament descriptions of angels calling to each other, holy, 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 calling out across the heavens. But in Venice, it had a particular context because worship in Venice was a very spectacular, a very dramatic thing. And there was a real blend between the sacred and the secular. A lot of it was affirming how important Venice was and how strong it was and how much it had achieved. So it's not really a separation of those two things. You had the sacred and the secular, and the glory of it, the grandeur of it, was always going to be part of worship, as it was part of any public statement, any public events.
Well, you still see that, of course, today, don't you, with some of the larger churches.
Indeed.
Roland Peelman, you know lots about this period of music because of conducting music with the Song Company in particular. But you don't get to play with the brass so often.
No, I don't, Andy. It's a rare occasion this morning.
Tell us, though, what this, musically speaking, what this period means, because this is the period sort of immediately before Monteverdi. Or, in fact, actually, this
at the same time.
At the same time, as
yes.
Monteverdi.
Well, by the time this particular volume had been published, 1615, Monteverdi had been appointed, right, to San Marco, and that was the prime position, the prime job to have for any musician, really, in Italy at that time. So it was a very febrile period of music, I would say, and in a sense, too, it. Natalie just talked so beautifully about, the splendor of Venice. The fact that Venice was a very rich state, that it had amassed fortunes from all parts of the world, and it felt great pride in all of that. Venice had actually the money, therefore, to attract the best musicians. And it's extraordinary that the Gabrieli family, because Giovanni Gabrieli, who wrote this piece, was the nephew of Andrea Gabrieli, who sort of set up the family there in Venice. They were very much part of the furniture, expensive furniture, of course, in Venice. What we can see on the paintings of that time, the exploration of illusion, perspective, in the paintings of Titian and Tintoretto and so on. They're huge, big canvases that explore color in very interesting ways, that also explore the space in a certain way. In the same fashion, these pieces explore the space. And this is perhaps the first, conscious moment where a composer starts really playing with the space, whereby the space becomes an element of the composition itself, rather than just the notes or the rhythm. Even though it was always dormant, perhaps, in the service, antiphonal hymns and antiphonal psalms, etc., had always been part of the church service. It was kind of there, but to really expose it in a big way is what Gabrieli and consorts showed us.
It's funny, isn't it? It's still the aspect of music which is least explored by composers, it seems to me. Whenever you have a piece performed with an offstage trumpet or something like that, it's like kind of a special moment, and you would think that composers would take that sort of thing into account much more than they do.
Of course, you have to have the space to do it in, right? You can't do it in a recording studio. You have to actually fabricate it. You have to concoct it, you have to fabricate it. It's not a natural thing. A church, of course, or some churches, lend themselves to these things beautifully. And some concert halls as well, of course. Some
yes.
don't. If you could just add because you're the leading part there, having the last clear. Once again. Definitely possible. Yeah.